This is a reading from the Notebooks by Maria Valtorta, 1945 to 1950, March 25th, 1945. I complained to the mother, saying, "But in this way I can no longer think of you. I write and write and write, and then remain as if dead, unable to say even a Hail Mary. You see this. I am left with the rosary in my hand. Precisely now, when I wanted to offer you increased company on these Lenten and Passion Fridays, I get a very clear reply. It doesn't matter. You sing the gospel of his passion, and weep over his pain, and accompany him therein, and you thus dry my tears, much more than if you accompanied me directly. Daughter of the heavenly Jerusalem, weep over the sins of the world, and bless the Lord who wanted you to be sterile, lacking human joy, in order to receive the glory of being the little John. Along with me say, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me as he wills. I bless you, and do not detain you. I shall await you on the way to Calvary. Go." March 29th and 30th of 1945. My joys. From midday on, I was utterly sad on Thursday, because I was thinking, there will be no communion tomorrow. With what I always suffer, especially on Fridays, and what Passion Friday has generally meant for me for 15 years, to be left without my food caused me sorrow. I was thinking, 2 years ago, Father Migliorini brought me communion at dawn on Good Friday. I was ill, and he thus could, and I assure you that I would have wished to be even worse off so as to be able to receive it, along with sorrow over the relic of the Holy Cross which was taken from me after it was given by a woman who has contributed with Satan to causing me affliction. These are my secret and deepest sufferings. Marta had gone out to visit the 7 churches. I was alone. I was writing, and Mary's desolation was fusing with the tears of poor Maria. I was lifted from affliction by the joyful apparition of my Jesus, not martyred and bloody, but handsome, radiant in his white linen robe, as he is at the gladdest times in the visions. He came towards me, as if he were coming from flowering countryside, and smiled, holding something underneath the white mantle he had drawn across his chest and over his hands. He said, "Little John, I wanted to call you little scribe, but I won't say this to you, for if you are the layman who, since the priests are not sufficient, teaches the truth about my mortal lifetime, you are not, however, a creature of harshness and ferocity, as the scribes in my time were. Listen, little John, Father Migliorini cannot bring you communion, and you suffer. I am your priest. I have kept you bent over my tortures, my agony. It is right for me to give you a reward. Look, many years ago I was heading for the cenacle at this hour to consummate the Passover and distribute the first Eucharist. Come and take this, little John." And letting his mantle fall open, he showed me the ciborium he was holding in his hand. He became solemn and said, "I am the living bread, descending from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will no longer be hungry, and will live eternally. This is my body, which I give you in memory of me. Take it and eat." And he gave me a large host. I say large because it was as big as an ancient coin, a scudo. Its spiritual and material flavor was such that it filled me with delight. He caressed me and then said, "Now that you are nourished, write. I shall come back tomorrow." And this evening, at the same hour, he appeared to me again. I had been feeling ill since you were here, and was unable to get over the crisis. I was in a cold sweat, very pale, and gasping, with constant dizziness, and a darkening of my sight. And yet I was writing, because I had to write. Our Lady of Sorrows was moaning out all of her agony. Jesus removed me for a while from so much shared moral and physical pain, and holding the chalice fully exposed, filled with red, vigorous blood, I would say thick, nearly boiling, for it foamed with strange bubbles, as if it had just come out of an artery, he said, "This is my blood, which I have shed out of love for you. Take it and drink." And he brought the chalice up to my lips, while drawing me towards it with his other hand. I perceived the coldness of the metal against my lips, and the smell of the blood in my nose, but I felt no repugnance. I pressed my lips against the smooth brim of the silver chalice, and drank a sip of this divine blood, which has all the characteristics of our own in terms of fluidity, viscosity, and taste. but it flows down into me, bringing me a delight which lifts me high up into joy. I would like to drink and drink, for the more you drink, the more you would like. But reverence restrains me, and I contemplate that beloved blood, smell its living scent, and admire its perfect bright redness. But Jesus has me drink twice more, and he then departs. And the taste and fragrance of that blood of my Jesus remain in me. I almost did not want to write this here, but in a letter which I was unsure about giving to you at once, or letting you have at my death, for certain sublime moments are poorly and unwillingly articulated. Later, however, the idea of writing it down in a notebook and making it known to you immediately prevailed. I am filled with supernatural delight. March 31st, 1945, 8 a.m. And it still lasts. That chalice remains present before my mental sight, as if I were still seeing it, and the ineffable taste of the blood of my God remains in my palate. These are my communions on Holy Thursday and Friday. April 1st, 1945, Easter Sunday, 11 p.m. For Father Migliorini, Sister M. Gabriella, and me, Jesus says, before the day of the resurrection concluded, I showed myself to the faithful women and my dearest friends, so that their joy would be complete, and they would all know that the trial was over, and the Lord was risen, and their faith would be confirmed by his peace and forgiveness. Before this day ends, I come to you that have managed to turn your hearts into a Bethany and a cenacle, and have remained with me in the Passion. Peace and blessing for both Marias, peace and blessing for them and my Lazarus, peace and blessing for those living with them in love for me. Grow in love for me. May the blood and the word create ever new strength in you. Come without fear to the wounded palms you have no need to touch in order to believe, but you need caresses to receive a foretaste of heaven, and my hands are full of caresses for my friends. I have wanted you with me in the Passion, so that you would be familiar with it in order to love it increasingly. For this familiarity is strength and sanctification. Savor it to the point of becoming strong with my own strength, even in sufferings out of love for God and man. Come with me now into the joy which the world cannot have, my joy. For you, the friends of my Bethanies, known to me alone, the peace and blessing of the risen Lord. April 10th, 1945. Having rested for 3 days, I opened the Bible. I opened it at random, just to read something which is still a word coming from God. It opens before me at page 769, and my eye falls on verses 25 to 31 of Psalm 17, Book 1. Footnote 31 says, in the Vulgate, in the Hebrew text, Psalm 18, verses 25 to 31. And the Lord speaks. Isn't that perhaps what you can say about yourself? At one time I loved you with my perfection, but you did not love me with your perfection. For even if there was remembrance of me in your heart, there were affections even stronger than the affection offered to me. You did not deserve my reward. You remember that time, and I too remember it. You had come away from your boarding school, wholly fragrant with God, like a temple virgin, fragrant with the scent of ritual incense, and I had already chosen you. When did I choose you? Do you want to know? In reality, when a soul was created for you, for no human destiny is unknown to eternal thought. No human destiny is unknown to eternal thought, but the little Maria, kept alive by my will in spite of the unhappy circumstances in which you were born, and which accompanied you in the months when you were a suckling angel, was mine, when she shed her first tears before the divine being in his deposition from the cross. He asked me for you, and I gave you with a smile of satisfaction. For your sake in heaven, he repeated and conveyed to the Father and the Paraclete, let the little children come to me. There are only the lips of children to take away the pain of his wounds, children in age and children in will, those who out of love for him and obedience to the Master become like little children to receive the kingdom of heaven. Footnote 32. Matthew 18, verses 1 through 5, Mark 10, verses 13 to 15, Luke 18, verses 15 to 17. God's delight, Mary, the Virgin Mother, is the perfect child, rejoicing in the kingdom of heaven. The souls of adults who are children are as rare as pearls of a perfect roundness and a marvelous size, but children in all age possess that soul, as if not yet profaned, which brings delight to God and relief to Christ. And the Son wanted you from that point on. Every innocent tear earned you his kiss. Every kiss a grace, and every grace a betrothal to divine love. It is not an error to look back so as to be able to intone the Magnificat and the Miserere, and you were able to intone your Magnificat until you left boarding school. You were entirely God's, a single altar in you, and a single love. The lily, with a barely half-open calyx, was filled only with heavenly dew and divine sunbeams. Then the world came, and with it many other altars and many other loves, the usurpers of my place, and they lasted as long as I willed. I could also not have so willed, and there will be some who say, it was a dangerous experiment. No, it was necessary. The apostles were humiliated by their defection from Christ, during which every branch of corrupt humanity got the upper hand in them, and they were again gripped and shaken and incited by all that disturbs man, and they understood that all they had become, which was different, was not by their merit alone, but because they were with Christ. And pride, the corrupter of man, was broken in them. It is necessary to do this with all those chosen for a special destiny, so that they will not lose their election by forfeiting my love. The usurpers of my place in you fell one by one, and your God alone became your king again, to whom you sang the Miserere of your wise repentance. Now, daughter, look at the past and the present. Look at that time of many loves, for man, knowledge, and yourself, and observe the present time, since there has once again been only one love, for me. And tell me with your soul, listening to it alone, the only one with a true, valuable voice, don't you have everything now? Haven't you had everything since you became mine? Many who are foolish will say, she has nothing, neither health, nor joy, nor well-being. But your soul, which sees with its eyes as a soul, says, I have everything now, even what is a holy surplus, if what falls beyond what is strictly necessary to ascend to God can be termed a surplus. You have your special mission as a spokesman, but beyond this, which is a gift, and it is not necessary to have it to be among the beloved, you have God's agreement regarding your desires. Why? Because, as the psalm states, the Lord has rewarded me according to my justice, according to the purity of my hands in his sight. I am infinitely, divinely munificent with the just and pure in heart, good to the weak. I am perfectly good to those able to be strong in my love, and since I am love, I must force myself not to be weak towards those who are at fault. I grant them the mercy of my Son. I grant the multitude of my gifts to my children, and I save and enlighten and free and fortify them increasingly, and I lead them, taking them by the hand, along my immaculate way, instructing them with my word, tempered in the fire of divine love. It is that way with you, soul of mine, that have placed your love and all your trust in me. Do not be afraid, flower of God. There is not a single one, from the microscopic flowers in frozen lands to the gigantic flowers in torrid zones, that I leave without the dew, light, and warmth needed for their delicate lives. And they are steels. But what care will the flowers of my souls receive from their Creator? Do not be afraid, flower of God, beaded with the pearls of the blood and tears of the Son and the Virgin. With these gems and your faithfulness, you are very dear to me. Sing the Magnificat forever. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit are with you. O Lord, Lord, you say so, and it must be true. Everything must have been necessary. But what an occurrence was your abandonment of me last year. You see this. You are not aware of the sensations of hearts. You are not unaware of the sensations of hearts. There are wounds which hurt after the process of healing, at even the slightest graze. At times they hurt through the sympathetic nerves even when they are touched, or the opposite members. Cut nerves ache even after the wound has closed, and your abandonment, even now, when you have pulled me back over your heart, is a wound which always brings pain, because it cut the nerve joining me to you. I do not ask, why did you do it? I only say, you know what your abandonment was like for me. Today I trembled on writing April 10th. For a year ago today, you left your poor flower without dew, light, or warmth, and I nearly died on this account. For I have given you everything, and if I still had anything else, I would give it to you, but never give me a trial like that again. You see that my wretchedness cannot endure it. I sing, of course. I sing my Magnificat. I also say to you, I have not really deserved your doing great things in me, but my song is forever mixed with tears, because as a child who has gone through a period of abandonment in infancy no longer has the serene face of happy children, so too I always bear in mind your abandonment last year. Jesus is right. Mary is right. What is unendurable in our passion is being abandoned by you, Father. As I write this, the little lamp perpetually burning before Jesus is lit up again, the little star shining alongside my heart before my crucified Jesus. It had been extinguished for a year. My cell, my tabernacle, and my paradise no longer possessed light, and this occasioned me such great affliction. I have received everything from your love, but also so much from your sternness, darkness, solitude, and what your Son termed hell. I am left like a bird that by pure good fortune has escaped from its torturers. I am afraid. On all sides I see nets and cages and tortures. Lord, have mercy. April 12th, 1945. Jesus says, write this alone. God's designs possess a mysterious, holy necessity, and only in the other life will they appear clear to you. They sometimes seem to have a strange inconsistency. They seem so to you, because you look at everything with human eyes. However, the whole succession of events is a harmonious, just concatenation from which human and superhuman destiny comes. Destiny comes because, according to the soul's response to the design God proposes for it, there corresponds a destiny of blessedness or damnation, or simply painful purgation in the other life, and in this one, divine assistance or abandonment. Prompt obedience and cheerful adherence to God's design are the sign of the spiritual formation of a heart. Jesus Christ was the perfect one in this formation. He was as God. He was as a man. And if as God he could not be seduced by the tempter, who injects pride and disobedience to take a spirit away from the good of God, as man, when he was on earth, he really could have been enjoined to disobey by the tempter. Consider, daughter, the kind of obedience to which he had to subject himself. He had already imposed upon himself the degrading yoke, for him, who was God, of a humanity, and with it he had had to endure all that is humanity. But at the end of that humanity he saw the cross, the opprobrious and painful death of the crucifix. He was not unaware of his future, and he did not flee from his future. How often men, though knowing that from a given thing proposed to them by God, there will come a good for them and their fellows, flee, saying, why should I leave this which is advantageous for me to take on that which is painful? And for the sake of whom? Why, for the sake of love, children, love for me. The Father cannot ask you for anything which is not for your certain and not transitory good. If you proceeded in faith, you would not doubt the Father. You would say, if you propose this to me, it is certainly for my good. I'll do it. If you proceeded in love, you would say, he loves me. I love him. And if, moreover, the thing proposed were for the good of your neighbor, even if it were a sacrifice for you, if you were holy, you would immediately accept it as my Son did for your good. I would then give you a resplendent reward. Consequently, when you observe the apparent contrast in your life, indeed, the many contrasts in your life, and what you have always say that an event apparently in disagreement with the following one and with my current state paved the way for this, and I have this because I accepted that. Consider that since you made the words of my son's prayer, "Thy will be done," the fruitful norm of your life, you have no longer paused, but walked forward, then run, and then flown on high. The more joyful, prompt obedience to my design has increased in you, the more will knowledge and improvement have been accentuated. I shall say no more. Remain in our blessing. I thought it was Jesus, but it is instead the Eternal Father who is saying these sweet words to me this morning, and with great mercy towards my physical condition. April 14th, 1945. The Divine Spirit says, I wounded your intellect with the statement, immortality resides in intimate union with wisdom. Wisdom chapter 8, verse 17. I shall now explain this truth to you. Let us compare the soul to any creature and wisdom. Let us compare this soul to just any creature and wisdom, to a powerful king. The creature, as long as she is only a subject of that king, or just a being, the king sees when going on a journey over the earth is nothing but a creature with no particular distinction. Today, content with her little well-being, tomorrow trembling with fear of excessive power, the day after busying herself with matters of slight value, and the following day weeping over loss in her goods. The king is always the same, rich, powerful, and secure, but the poor creature is never secure. But if that king, from the height of his couch, lets his gaze fall upon the creature, and seeing that she is lovable in her poverty, feels love for her and says, I want to take her with me, instruct her so she will not cut a poor figure at my side, and then, when she has become learned in the art of the kingdom, make her my wife. And does so, doesn't this soul, by such a choice, acquire the gifts of power and wealth and security of her husband king? When wisdom says to a soul, Come, you are mine, and instructs her in his truths, and chooses her as his consort, giving himself in continual loving embraces, revealing himself in all his sublime perfection on the marriage bed, opening all his coffers and saying, Take my gems, they exist to adorn you, and handing her the chalice of vivifying wine, which grants wholeness and eternal life, saying, Drink from my cup, in order to be preserved from corruption and death. Then the soul passes from subjection to union, and if faithful to this election, she acquires immortality, true immortality, not the relative one given by men to men. How many who in their time regarded themselves as, and were called, immortal, are now among the unknown dead, even in terms of remembrance. Most men do not even know they lived. And among those who know them by name, who knows their work with precision, an exiguous minority, true immortality is that known to God and his blessed ones. It is that which will be proclaimed on the day of the last judgment in the sight of the resurrected multitude. It is that which is conquered by union with wisdom, with me. For those who live with me and love me adorn themselves with my gems, and drink my waters, walk in the ways of holiness, and conquer immortality by conquering the kingdom of God. I won't leave you. If the repose of the Son of God is in the hearts that love him, my joy is to remain close to those who love me. The love, feeding on love, who feels he is sinking into his love because he can pour the waves of his goodness into too few, expands, full and constant, like a great perennial river, over the souls faithful to him. He embraces them with his very sweet waves, lifts them up, and transports them, bearing them into the great sea of the knowledge of God, as far as the gulf of blessedness, to the breast of the eternal Father. Be good. Remain at peace. The flower on the wave does not offer resistance. It sails into the azure, wherein it quenches its thirst, shining in the sunbeams because of the water adorning it, and heads into open sea. Go in the same way. I bless you.